Hi, welcome to Bruce's Garage. I'm Bruce and this is my garage. Should you even polish a brand new car, particularly before you apply ceramic coating? I mean, why do we polish anyway? Well, I'm going to answer those questions and I'm going to walk you through the steps that I took to polish this brand new Honda 2024 CR-V. I'm going to take you through my logic, what I did in the number 4 video of my new car series. So come on in and let's have some fun. Well, let's jump right into polishing this brand new Honda 2024. Why did I even think about polishing a brand new car? Well, first of all, oftentimes a brand new car, the condition is not pristine, believe it or not. Depending upon how long that vehicle sat on the dealer's lot, how long it took to be in transit, and the care that was taken when the car was prepped for you as the car owner. Because dealers are not always the most cautious around how they detail a vehicle. Now, I was very fortunate. This Honda CR-V didn't travel a long distance to get to the dealership. It also had minimal paint defects. I found one scratch when I inspected it, so we were able to correct that, which I'll show you. But overall, the paint really was in pretty good shape. It only sat at the dealer for 2 days from delivery. So we were lucky, but I still wanted to polish it. Now, why would I want to polish it? Well, first of all, I wanted the paint to shine better than what it would look brand new. I wanted as high a gloss as I could get. Why? Was I just chasing perfection? No, but when you're going to apply a ceramic coating, you want to seal in and protect the best looking vehicle. So let me give you an example. Let's say you're going to paint your wall, a wall in your home, and that wall has some imperfections to it, some nail holes, maybe a little bit of chip in the drywall. Do you have to repair all of those things before you paint? No, you don't have to. You can just paint over those things and, it'll look okay, but you're still going to see the chip. You're still going to see the little holes in the wall. And you're going to all that effort to paint the wall. Why not spackle those holes and get everything looking great? It's the same kind of thing with car paint. If I'm going to seal it all in, ideally, you want it to look its best. Now, that doesn't mean you have to polish before ceramic coating. You don't have to. This is all about your decisions. It's your car. You decide what you want it to look like and how beautiful you want it to be, how close to perfect. So that's an important thought that you need to have when you're going into polishing the vehicle. So my focus was not really to do a full paint correction, which means that there was a lot of imperfections in the paint, a lot of swirls, scratches, the gloss wasn't there. That wasn't the case. So I really didn't need to do a paint correction, other than I had one spot, as I said, where there was a scratch that I wanted to try to get that scratch out. Other than that, everything else was just around bringing up the gloss. Now you know why I chose to polish this car, but a couple things I want to clear up first. Number one, I'm not going to go into super depth on how to polish. I'm going to walk you through my process for this brand new car. But I want you to know that there's a lot of different ways to accomplish polishing and paint correction techniques. There's a lot of different tools you can use. So my intention here is not to give you a comprehensive tutorial on everything there is to know about paint correction. And quite frankly, I'm not the person to teach you about every little thing there is to know about paint correction. But what I can show you is what I did, how I did it, why I did it, and the results. So first thing is to understand the layers of the paint. And what are we really doing when we're polishing? So paint has multiple layers, as you can see in this graphic. And really what we're doing is we're trying to level out the clear coat, the top layer, and it's a very thin layer. Okay, we are not talking about a lot of depth here. So we have a limited amount of clear coat that we can polish. And by the way, once that clear coat is gone, if you polish through clear coat, you're done. So you have to be thoughtful and careful to some degree around how much you're polishing or doing a paint correction on any vehicle. Now, of course, with a new vehicle, I've got as much clear coat on there as there's ever going to be, but there's still not a lot of clear coat. So we're really just trying to smooth it out because any little imperfections in that top layer, and sometimes those scratches and things permeate well below the clear coat layer, but that's when paint correction, polishing, and using correction compounds won't get the scratch out because the scratch is already below that top layer of clear coat. So all we're doing when we're polishing or doing paint correction is we're smoothing that clear coat out to make it equal so that we get a nice gloss when light reflects off of it and it's not refracted from a scratch. So that's what we're trying to do here. So because there was only one minor scratch, my focus was on polishing versus paint correction. Polishing, simply trying to bring up the shine, the gloss. Paint correction means that I'm correcting or eliminating or reducing an imperfection that's due to some outside source or even sometimes from the installation of the paint. But in this case, there was only that one scratch that was a correction. So my focus, again, was bringing up the gloss. That's what helped me choose what polishes, what pads I was going to use on the polisher. So the polish I chose, and again, this is where there's all different suppliers of polishes. There are all different kinds of polishes and compounds. There are all different kinds of pads. So where does one begin? This was overwhelming for me when I started polishing for the first time. And what I did was I tried to learn as much about what was out there. And then I landed on some polishes and pads and that combination. Because I'm not polishing vehicles every single day, I needed to figure out how these pads and polishes work together and find what worked for me, what I got comfortable with. So I don't have a variety of tons of different polishes. I don't have tons of experience in different polishes. I've stuck with, between Koshemi and Rupes, I've stuck with those two groups of polishes so that I could start to learn the behavior of those polishes in combination with different kinds of pads and my technique for polishing. So don't mean to confuse you with all of that, but I think that background's important because if you watch other videos, you're gonna see, well, this person did it different than Bruce did, and Bruce did it different than this other person. Doesn't mean we're all right or all wrong. We just did things differently, and that's okay. That's okay. You have to kind of land on something and figure out what works for you. So I used Uno Pure from Rupes as the polishing. This is a very high gloss polish. It also does not leave behind any type of protection. So there are some polishes, including in the Rupes line, that leave some protection behind. And sometimes I use those if I'm working on a vehicle where I want the protection to be there because I'm not going to be ceramic coating afterwards. But in the case of this brand new Honda, I knew my plan was following polishing that I was going to apply the ceramic coating. So I didn't want any protection left behind that would impede the ability of the ceramic coating from bonding with the paint surface. So this Rupes polish gives a very high gloss, very easy to use, not a lot of dust, works really well for me. And I paired that, so I have my Milwaukee polisher, and I paired that with the Rupes white pads. Now, what most companies do is they have a recommended pad polish combination if you're using all in the same line. And you can tell, white pad, white bottle. So that's what Rupes does. It doesn't mean you always have to use a white pad, but that means that's their recommended kind of standard. And the white pad for Rupes is their softest pad. It's for polishing. It's to get the high gloss. It's not really going to provide any correction. Keep in mind, depending upon what supplier you have for pads and polishes, the pads will be different colors. So you can't always say like the white pad of every company is for polishing. That's not true. So you have to learn each different supplier, which is again why I kind of stuck with one. Once I understood not only the pad system of Rupes, but I understood how these pads worked, what was different about them, and which ones worked better or worse for different situations. I'm using the Milwaukee 15 millimeter dual action polisher. Okay, so a dual action polisher simply means that there's rotation, but it's also a random orbital. So it's not going strictly around and around, it's doing some of this. So it's moving in all directions there. All right, so now that we've defined some terms, I want to walk through with you again, just a highlight some of the equipment if you're going to polish what you need. So of course you're going to need some type of polisher. So a dual action polisher is probably a great place to start. Doesn't have to be a Milwaukee, doesn't have to be a Rupes. It can be a Harbor Freight polisher, a dual action polisher. There's a lot of different polishers on the market. You will need pads. So again, whether you're going to, depending upon if you're just polishing this brand new car, the white pads might be fine. For that one scratch that I had, I also used the Rupes yellow pad. This is their DA Fine, so it's a dual action, designed for the dual action polisher. It's a little bit more firm foam, and I paired that with the DA Fine polish. So Rupes also has a coarse compound, which is more abrasive than the fine. I was being conservative, and I wanted to use just minimal amount of paint correction on that one scratch. Which brings me to one of the key concepts when really everything in detailing, you always start with the least aggressive method first. So in other words, you could say, well, Bruce, why didn't you use the most aggressive compound and pad combination to get rid of the scratch? Well, maybe I don't need to use that. And if I use the most aggressive method first, there's a downside to that. I am taking off more clear coat, this limited supply of clear coat that's on this vehicle for the life of the vehicle. So why do that? I want to use the least aggressive method first and then slowly move up from there. So what other equipment do I need? We've talked about the polishes, we talked about the pads, talked about the polisher. I also have a Milwaukee paint correction light. You don't have to have a paint correction light, but the reason people will use some type of paint correction light is lighting is really important when you're doing any type of polishing and paint correction, because you want to look at very closely the paint on the vehicle to see where the imperfections are and to see, did my polishing improve the appearance of that? Did it correct what I wanted to do? Did it improve the appearance of the paint? These are very accurate. So paint correction lights are very accurate in terms of the light reproduction. They're usually fairly intense lights. This one, you can change the color temperature. Most lights that are for paint correction, you can change the color temperature. It's nice because it's handheld and I can move it in all different directions. I can get really close, I can get really far. So I try to use this so that I can get an overall perspective. Sometimes I'll pull the car outside and look at it under sunlight. Look at it 4 feet away, 6 feet away, like when you normally would look at it and say, how does that look? And if it looks great and you're happy, then it's great. It's perfect in your eyes. That's all that matters. So don't get caught up in all the hype around, getting something looking really perfect or all the detail of every little imperfection. It just depends what your objective is. My objective was to make the car look as best as I could in a reasonable amount of time, taking off as minimal amount of clear coat as I had to do to achieve that. Use the polisher on the surface. One of the important steps when you're polishing is that you're keeping the polisher moving back and forth. And I do a crosshatch pattern, which is fairly typical. So I'm gonna go across, then I'm gonna come down, overlapping by about 50%. And I do that for the panel that I am working on. I don't work on a complete panel at one time. It's usually about the size of 6 or 8 pads. So you kind of visualize that. I'm gonna go all the way across, come back across, back across, back across. Then I'm gonna come up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. And I'll do that 2 to 3 times across the surface. Once that is complete, then I'm gonna wipe off the polish from the surface. And that's when I can take my paint light and look at it and say, okay, did this accomplish what I wanted? Does this look good? Is this good enough? Is this where I want the paint to be? If the answer is yes, then I can move on. If the answer is no, then I need to be thinking about, am I using the right pad polish combination? Should I have put more pressure on the pad? Should I have gone a little bit slower? So my technique is a factor along with the equipment and polish that I'm using. Now, I also taped off some of the trim. You will see some people tape off, you will see other people not tape. Here's why you tape, and you don't always have to do that. So certain polishes can stain the black trim. Now, most of the time, if you get polish on the trim, you can wipe that off right away and there's no staining. What I found in the Honda was that it wasn't necessarily staining it white like the polish, but what it was doing was just adding gloss to the trim, which I was not looking for, and it was hard to wipe off. So I decided that because I didn't want that, I would go ahead and tape off the trim so I didn't have to worry about having little marks of gloss unless I was going to polish all the trim. Do you have to polish a brand new car before ceramic coating? Or for that matter, do you have to polish any car before you're going to ceramic coat it? The answer to that is no, you don't have to. You don't have to do any of that. But why do you do it? Remember what I said in the beginning around painting the wall that's got imperfections and it's got holes in it from pictures you've hung before. You don't have to correct those things. But if you're going to take the time to paint it, then you probably want to correct those imperfections in the wall. It's not going to take that long. It's not that hard. And it will look a whole lot better. So the same thing applies to car paint. If there's some imperfections, or if I want to get that gloss even higher than what it already is, then polish. But if you're okay with it the way it is, then not polishing is not a big deal. In fact, it doesn't impede or help the ceramic coating. As long as the vehicle's clean and not contaminated, you don't have to polish before applying a ceramic coating. Contrary to popular belief, most people will say, if we're going to coat a vehicle, we would polish it. And most professional detailers would recommend that. Honestly, because you're spending a lot of money with a professional detailer to ceramic coat the vehicle, I think I'd probably want it looking its best if I'm going to make that investment. But again, that is your choice. You're the consumer. You decide what level of appearance you want and what you're willing to invest. And it's okay if you want the protection of the ceramic coating, but you're not looking to get the gloss any higher than what the paint already is. Okay, that's fine. It's like having a painter come in and paint my wall and saying, I don't want to pay you to fix all these little imperfections in the wall. I just want you to paint the wall. Just remember that most importantly is have fun, get your vehicle looking great, have fun with it. Ceramic coating is not hard to do. And in so my next video coming up, we're going to ceramic coat the Honda 2024. I'm going to be ceramic coating all the paint surfaces. After that, I'm going to show you what I did on the glass, because I ceramic coated the glass, and trim as well, and the wheels. So look forward to those videos. I sincerely appreciate you coming into my garage today and watching this video. I'd appreciate a thumbs up, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Thanks.